The 4 steps to integrating and developing evidence. Paragraph development. A solid body paragraph should be somewhere between 10 to 12 sophisticated sentences with a topic sentence and thoroughly analyzed evidence that is then explained in relationship to the topic sentence. When the above is done well, then the reader will be able to clearly understand how the ideas of the thesis are being developed. A paragraph of carefully analyzed and explained evidence strongly supports the ideas that the thesis has put forth. But when a paragraph doesn't include all the appropriate components, it's like leaving out the cement in a brick wall or using substandard bricks. If you don't build the wall well, it'll fall to ruin. If a writer doesn't develop strong body paragraphs, the essay risks becoming just a pile of words. There are 4 important steps that must be followed when incorporating evidence into your body paragraphs. 1. Introduce and or give a context for your reader to understand where the evidence is coming from and for what reason. 2. Offer the specific concrete evidence. Evidence might be a quotation, a description of a scene from a film, statistics, paraphrases, and so on. 3. Analyze the specific details of the evidence as thoroughly as possible. If the piece of evidence is a quotation, then you need to analyze the implications of the specific words and ideas of the quotation. If it is a description of a film, you need to analyze the implications of the visual details of the scene. 4. Explain how the evidence and your ideas about it support the topic sentence. A couple of things to keep in mind. When you are integrating a quotation, you always want to be sure to integrate the quotation into your words and ideas. For example, as John Doe was reaching for the knife, he muttered, "You'll never see another tax day again." The above uses steps 1 and 2 to integrate the quotation into the writer's own words. Steps 3 and 4, the analysis and the explanation, are the most difficult aspects of writing essays, because this is where your critical thinking needs to be as clearly and thoroughly articulated as possible. Watch out for summary. This is often where people fall into simply retelling the story that is being discussed. Let's look at an example paragraph. But first, to give some context, we need to look at the text the paragraph will be about. The Watcher at the Ropes, from the poem Circus by Vine McCaslin. Stretching her toes until they kiss the dizzy roof on her upward swing, blindfolded, Marie makes a spring in faultless curve above the abyss. The man on another frail trapeze, clipping the bar with supple knees, catches her ankles. The nervous crowd closes its eyes or gasps aloud, watching from very far below, hypnotized as to and fro the pendulum swings till they leap apart. A mother's hand goes to her heart. A boy in uniform shouts or drones, "Soda pop, candy, and ice cream cones." Attendants slouch by the ropes and wait. Unseen among them watches fate. His lips move, counting. His deep eyes stare upward at Marie, Queen of the Air. So we want to think about the poem here and the basic story that's being told. There's the trapeze artist, there's the audience that's watching and the excitement that they have. But one of the interesting things is the people who work at the circus, the boy in the uniform, the attendants at the ropes, are just slouching and droning, right? They seem to be bored. They see this every day. But also here is fate, which is really interesting. Fate is kind of like the symbol of death, and his lips move. He's counting. So he's here watching Marie. He's counting those swings because he knows what swing it is where she's actually going to fall. So when the poem ends, Queen of the Air, there's a bit of irony here because the implication is actually that she's going to fall and no longer be the queen of the air, but splattered on the floor. So we have a paragraph here, and the 4 steps are all highlighted. So the topic sentence is highlighted in yellow, which is actually step 4 also, because step 4 is where you need to explain how analysis relates to the topic sentence. Then we have step 1, introduce and give a context for the evidence. Step 2, offer the specific concrete evidence. And step 3, analyze the details of the evidence. So let's pull this up closer so that we can read it more easily. Vine McCaslin uses the trapeze artist to remind us how time is always ticking towards death. So this is the topic sentence. Watching the trapeze artist, the audience is hypnotized as the pendulum, the trapeze, swings. Along with counting of the seconds, a pendulum is a part of the clock which swings back and forth, the momentum of which moves the gears attached to the hands on the face of the clock. Therefore, a pendulum is mechanically essential to move time forward. The audience is hypnotized by this pendulum action. Hypnotism is often associated with the swing of a pocket watch, which suggests that the audience is not simply mesmerized by the circus act, but also with the pendulum-like action of time moving forward. Notice how step 3, the analysis, the part that's in white, carefully talks about the very specific words and the implications of those words in that quotation. And then we have step 4 that's highlighted in yellow because it connects us to the topic sentence. McCaslin brings these ideas associated with time together to suggest that the audience is focused on the trapeze artist because they understand that the pendulum could stop swinging and the trapeze artist could fall to her death. During the act, a mother's hand goes to her heart. The hand, being placed on the heart, reinforces the audience's fear while watching this heart-stopping event. But more importantly, McCaslin, instead of simply saying a woman, uses the character of an unspecified mother, suggesting that the beating heart is being protected by the maternal hand that protects her children. Using this generic mother figure connects these actions to the readers, all of whom have a mother. So we can start to see how each one of these steps along the way develops another aspect of the topic sentence. So, at the end, when we see fate's lips move, counting, our own lives are implicated. We understand that the counting is with each swing of the pendulum-like trapeze, and that time continuously moves forward, not in our control, but fate's, a cultural reference to a godlike figure that determines when we live or die. And so this last one gives us an example of the fact that even though we have those 4 steps, 1, 2, 3, 4, they don't have to go in that exact order all the time. Here we have steps 3 and 4 kind of moving around a little bit. So one thing to kind of keep in mind is the first part of the paragraph is almost half of that paragraph. It develops and analyzes a large section. These other pieces of evidence don't necessarily develop as much because they're a little bit shorter, but they're building off of what's already said. And so it's really important to think about how each piece of evidence develops and moves towards the next piece of evidence. So that order of why you would say one thing first and another second is a really important thing to consider. The other thing we want to keep in mind is the fact that steps 1 and 2, introducing and offering the evidence, notice how it's very little of the highlighted parts of the essay. So you want to think of the introducing and offering of evidence as somewhere between 10 to 20% of your paragraph. And the other parts, the parts that are most highlighted, the part in white and the part in yellow, are steps 3 and 4, the analyzing and explaining of the evidence. These are your ideas. This is your thinking, and that's what most of your paragraph needs to be. So you want to think of steps 3 and 4 as 80 to 90% of the paragraph that you're developing. Following these steps helps you avoid summary. One of the biggest areas that people tend to have difficulty with is avoiding the summary and making sure that they're doing the analysis. There's a good DLA, the Directed Learning Activities from the Writing Center, that focuses on helping you understand the difference between analysis and summary. So that might be one if you want to get a little extra credit. Work on that and then review it with one of the tutors.